Welcome to our journey through American history. Today, we'll explore some of the most pivotal moments that have shaped the United States. From the first inhabitants who walked these lands to the sprawling nation we know today, it's a story of triumph and tragedy, of resilience and reinvention. Through it all, the American spirit, one of ambition, of striving, of seeking a more perfect union, has endured. Let us begin, shall we?
Before the arrival of Europeans, this land was anything but empty. For thousands of years, a rich tapestry of indigenous cultures thrived across the continent. From the Pueblo people of the Southwest, masters of pottery and irrigation, to the Haudenosaunee Confederacy in the Northeast, whose system of governance would influence the Founding Fathers, these nations flourished. They possessed deep connections to the land, a spiritual kinship with nature, and traditions passed down through generations. It is a history too often ignored, but one essential to understanding the full scope of the American story. Their legacy lives on in the very names we use for our rivers and mountains, in the foods we eat, in the very fabric of this nation. But their story is also one of tragedy, of displacement and forced assimilation, a chapter we must confront with honesty and humility. We must remember, this land remembers.
The arrival of Europeans in the 17th century forever altered the course of North America. English settlements, driven by the promise of land and opportunity, took root along the Atlantic coast. Jamestown, Plymouth, Williamsburg. These names became synonymous with the birth of a new nation, but this new beginning was built upon a foundation of conflict. The displacement of Native Americans, the brutal realities of the transatlantic slave trade, these were the dark undercurrents of colonial life. Yet from this crucible of hardship and struggle, a distinct American identity began to emerge. The vast wilderness, the spirit of self-reliance, the yearning for freedom. These forces shaped the character of a people poised on the brink of revolution. The colonies, once distant outposts of the British Empire, began to chafe under the yoke of imperial rule. The seeds of discontent were sown, destined to blossom into open rebellion.
The shot heard round the world, they called it. A volley of musket fire on a Lexington Green, a clash of arms at Concord's North Bridge. The American Revolution had begun. What started as a colonial uprising transformed into a desperate struggle for independence. Farmers and shopkeepers, transformed into citizen soldiers, faced the might of the British Empire. From the battlefields of Saratoga to the winter encampment at Valley Forge, the fight for liberty exacted a heavy toll. But through it all, the spirit of '76 burned brightly. Guided by the words of Jefferson, the wisdom of Franklin, the courage of Washington, a new nation was forged in the fires of revolution. The Treaty of Paris in 1783 formally recognized the United States of America as a sovereign nation. The American experiment, daring and improbable, had begun. Chapter 4. In the hallowed halls of Philadelphia, a new chapter in American history was being written. The Articles of Confederation, the nation's first attempt at self-government, had proven, well, inadequate. The Founding Fathers, those giants of intellect and ambition, gathered once more to chart a new course for the fledgling republic. The Constitution, born of intense debate and compromise, established a framework for a more perfect union. It enshrined the principles of separation of powers, checks and balances, and a government accountable to its people. The Bill of Rights, those first 10 amendments, guaranteed fundamental freedoms, a beacon of liberty to the world. The United States, no longer a collection of disparate colonies, was now a nation bound by law, by shared ideals, and by a common purpose. The experiment, fraught with challenges, yet full of promise, continued. Chapter 5. The 19th century dawned with a sense of boundless possibility. The young nation, bursting at its seams, looked westward with a potent mixture of ambition and idealism. The Louisiana Purchase in 1803 doubled the size of the nation, opening up vast territories for exploration and settlement. The spirit of manifest destiny, the belief that America had a divine right to expand from sea to shining sea, took hold. Pioneers, driven by dreams of land and opportunity, embarked on treacherous journeys across the Great Plains. The Oregon Trail, the Santa Fe Trail, these became the arteries of westward expansion. But this relentless march westward came at a terrible cost. Native American tribes, driven from their ancestral lands, faced displacement and violence. The Trail of Tears, a tragic testament to this brutal chapter, serves as a stark reminder of the human cost of expansion.
Chapter 6. By the mid-19th century, the issue of slavery had become a festering wound on the soul of America. The South, with its economy dependent on slave labor, clashed with the abolitionist North. The Missouri Compromise, the Compromise of 1850, these were but temporary bandages on a gaping wound. With the election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860, the nation reached a breaking point. 11 Southern states seceded from the Union, forming the Confederate States of America. Brother fought against brother in a conflict that would claim over 600,000 lives. From Gettysburg to Vicksburg, from Antietam to Shiloh, the land ran red with the blood of a nation divided. Yet, through the crucible of war, the ideals of freedom and equality ultimately triumphed.
Chapter 7. Reconstruction and its discontents. In the aftermath of the Civil War, the nation faced the daunting task of rebuilding. The South, devastated by the conflict, struggled to come to terms with defeat and the end of slavery. Reconstruction, a period of immense hope and bitter disappointment, sought to reunite the nation and integrate freed slaves into society. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution abolished slavery, guaranteed equal protection under the law, and granted voting rights to African American men. But the promise of Reconstruction was short-lived. The rise of Jim Crow laws in the South enforced segregation and denied basic rights to African Americans. The Ku Klux Klan, a white supremacist terrorist organization, terrorized black communities. The legacy of slavery, deeply ingrained in the fabric of American society, continued to cast a long shadow.
Chapter 8. The Rise of Industry. The late 19th century witnessed a period of unprecedented industrial growth in the United States. Fueled by technological innovation, abundant natural resources, and a wave of immigration, the nation transformed into an economic powerhouse. Steel mills roared to life in Pittsburgh, textile factories hummed in New England, and railroads crisscrossed the continent, connecting a nation. But this era of progress also brought about significant social upheaval. Urban centers swelled with new arrivals, many seeking opportunity but facing poverty, overcrowding, and unsafe working conditions. The Gilded Age, as it came to be known, was a time of immense wealth and extravagant displays of opulence for the few, while many struggled to survive. Labor unions emerged, fighting for workers' rights and fair treatment. The battle between capital and labor would define much of the industrial era.
Chapter 9. A World at War. The 20th century dawned with a sense of both promise and unease. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1914 plunged Europe into a conflict that would engulf the world. The United States, initially reluctant to enter the fray, joined the Allied powers in 1917, tipping the balance of power and helping to secure victory. World War I left an indelible mark on the American psyche, a generation forever scarred by the horrors of trench warfare and the influenza pandemic that followed. The Roaring Twenties, a decade of economic prosperity and cultural dynamism, masked underlying social tensions. The stock market crash of 1929 ushered in the Great Depression, a period of widespread unemployment and economic hardship. As the world grappled with the rise of fascism, the United States once again found itself drawn into a global conflict.
Chapter 10. The Fight for Equality. The decades following World War II witnessed a profound social and cultural transformation in the United States. The Civil Rights Movement, a powerful struggle for racial equality, challenged the legacy of segregation and discrimination. Inspired by the words and actions of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a tireless advocate for nonviolent resistance, African Americans and their allies demanded an end to Jim Crow. From the Montgomery bus boycott to the March on Washington, from Selma to Stonewall, courageous individuals risked their lives and livelihoods to secure basic human rights. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 marked significant victories in the fight for equality. But the struggle for social justice continues, a reminder that the arc of the moral universe, while long, does not bend towards justice automatically.
Chapter 11. A Nation Evolving. The latter half of the 20th century and the early 21st century have been a time of rapid change and profound challenges for the United States. The Cold War, a decades-long ideological struggle with the Soviet Union, cast a long shadow over global affairs. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 signaled the end of the Cold War, but ushered in a new era of global uncertainty. The United States emerged as the sole superpower but faced new threats, from terrorism to climate change, from economic inequality to political polarization. The nation continues to grapple with its past, seeking to address systemic racism, promote social justice, and ensure equal opportunity for all. The American story, ever evolving, is a testament to the enduring power of its ideals, the resilience of its people, and the constant pursuit of a more perfect union. It is a story that belongs to all of us, a story still being written. And there you have it. A brief overview of some of the most significant events in American history. Each of these moments, from the arrival of the first inhabitants to the challenges we face today, has played a crucial role in shaping the nation we know today. It's a story of triumph and tragedy, of progress and setbacks, of a nation constantly striving to live up to its ideals. The American story is not a finished work, but rather an ongoing narrative, an unfinished symphony. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more historical insights.